Okay, welcome 3 to 3 years. So our final year radio students, just for our pre-recordings on the 1st of May. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just continue where we left off in class last week. And what I'm going to do tomorrow this now working back to the future, right? So I'm recording now on Monday, and tomorrow I'll see you for class. And so we'll continue further from lesson 34. So today, just for again for the pre-recordings, the half we're getting busy with lesson 33, and then of course 34. So let's move into this. We were, I mean, just to go all the way up. So let's move all the way up here. We were talking about, or we're continuing with the additional material that I have sent you in the WhatsApp group, Managing Radio Revisited from Tracy Johnson. Please excuse my mouth is all over the place today. Just going to struggle to get my words. Hopefully, I will clear up within a couple of seconds or so. But okay, we moved quite slowly through some examples, some great examples throughout our global industry about people that have made a difference in terms of their career, making an impact on audiences around the world, or what their not I wouldn't say their approaches, I wouldn't go into too much detail, but just some key characteristics of that personality and their obviously how that might relate or does relate to their success. Let's continue with something brand new. This is exactly why I wanted to start from this position, specifically within the lesson itself, applying research. Okay, and let's again, as you know me by now. I'm going to read some stuff from the lesson notes, and then as well as I will expand on that further. Most conclusions about the audience are based on quantitative data, which is effective for comparing images. Turning the data into action requires interpreting the information, which is something that we already know, right? But it's a great statement, or it's a great start to our lesson today. We do know like the mandatory, like the extremities of how important it is to understand our audience and our composite listener, which we have discussed earlier on in this year, to be able to then approach one, obviously, our content; two, our music rotation; three, our format. I mean, the way that we want to tweak our formats; the news, the different types of elements like sports, traffic, weather, whatever it may be, but also most definitely, the content, the feature, the attitude, the presenters, everything goes along based on that particular point, that core basis of understanding that composite listener. Let me not be repetitive because I know I have covered that quite often in class, and to, like I say, a large extent. Let's look at what Tracy says. These are varied aspects that we need to look at to be able to communicate directly, right? Effective content and effective experience with our listeners. Simplicity is the first one. So keep it simple. And the other is, I'm not quite sure what the other is stood for or stands for in the more polite way, but it's keep it simple, stupid, right? It's a kiss. Since listeners have short attention spans, well, they can't keep up with complex topics that move really quickly. I do believe so. So I keep saying this when there is a complex subject matter, right? So or many things that we have to put out there and make sure that are communicated, that are pushed through, that are like I say, made important, and it seems it is complex. Should you not explain it, or should you not gravitate or navigate through it carefully and obviously within a simple manner, then obviously anything will be lost. So you can take something very simple, should I say, like explaining how to walk a dog, and make that completely complicated, and the listener's going to be like, I don't even know what you're talking about, right? So our approach needs to be one that understands. Listen, yeah, everything can be understood by our average listener, as long as we make it understandable, right, to them. Personalities may think they're easily understood, which they really do, we really do, because it's the way that we speak and the way that we kind of gauge based on our relationships and our communications and interactions that we have every single day. And so far, so good is what we say in the back of our heads. Well, no one's really come up to me and said, well, I don't understand this, or can you talk slower, or can you repeat that? I'm not quite sure, right? But but we take that as a bit of a litmus test to be able to say, listen, yeah, okay, I guess then the majority of people will feel the same way. But they must be careful not to be overwhelmed, not too overwhelmed, should I say, the audience. Listener fatigue is usually a result of too many ideas in a break, definitely too many ideas in a break. So again, one thought with one link. It can be also a nice rich link, but it still has to be about one particular thing that you are focusing on. Avoid moving too quickly from one topic to another. Do give yourself some breaks in between, and also give your listener some breaks in between. In other words, be able to implement or integrate admin links, teasers, that type of stuff, to make sure that you're on the right track. Spend preparation time developing depth and multiple angles instead of finding more topics. Absolutely 100% correct. Our reference. Well, memorable personalities may appeal to consumers with multiple character traits, but are usually remembered for one thing. Whether it's a stunt feature or a character, find something and be known for it. Please, I'm going to say that with a pinch of salt. Don't aim to be one dimensional in your listener's life, right? And this, what I'm going to take away from this, and I'm going to ask you to do is please know that we all like people that are rich, or people that are interesting, people that have a little more than just like the most basic um I want to say not I want to say when you meet someone that is I'm sorry to use the word that's kind of colloquial but basic, you understand? It's someone that doesn't think any further than themselves, think further than what they've got to say, not listen to anyone, that type of thing. Don't be that type of person. Choose whatever you want in real life, but when you go on air, don't be that person, right? For any and all reasons that we have explained before and that are very obvious to understand. Many personalities, though, give up on an idea just because or just before it resonates with the audience, and it takes time for listeners to discover a show, begin to like it, and then fall in love. So that means consistency is super important in your success. So show up for every show, do your work. I'm saying to prepare a good show and don't worry too much about like, am I getting this immediate response of like, oh, I love this, or what an interesting topic, or you getting like callers or WhatsApps or whatever it may be, any validation, right? You have to be able to just just be able to pull yourself back slightly. I'm not saying completely, don't become detached from the process, because once again, that leads to delusion, right? You want to be able to sit back and say, listen, I know my process as a professional, and I know applying myself consistently is what is going to uh, I would say almost always guarantee you, a successful road ahead. David Letterman performed this. It was great. It was great. David Letterman is one of my favorite, or was one of my favorite late night talk show hosts. And he had this top 10 list that did every single night. I mean, he had so many different ways of doing it. It was very, very funny. I do also understand that he had many, many comedians writing for him. He himself, should I say, was a comedian too, but he also integrates celebrities and this and that and politicians to be able to, take part in this top 10 list. It was one of his benchmark features, but it also was part of his brand, the top 10 list. Everyone was looking forward to that time of the show. in addition to the rest of it. Really take some time and have a look at David Letterman, as I've said to you, with many of these other people that we have covered throughout this particular lesson. It's usually a mistake to move features from one time slot to another. Indeed, please, because you want to keep that consistency of habit that your listener has gotten used to. So if your feature is between 1 hour, let's say 2 to 3, every single day. Make sure it's the same time every single day, and don't change it just because you feel like it. So manage the balance of the urge to be able to say, I want to replace and obviously yeah, replace and remove things like benchmarks, like features, right? Just to be able to make me feel a little bit more comfortable in the mood, right, that I'm in today. The new audience isn't familiar with that segment. The old audience will miss out on something that they expect. So consistency continued. The new audience isn't familiar with the segment, and as I said there, exactly the last point. The old audience misses something they've come to expect. The discipline, right? I was going to say disciple. The discipline of consistent performance is evident on Broadway. Now we know Broadway as being like the big place, like that's where you want to go if you're a theater actor. So just kind of picture this there, Broadway, right? Where performers deliver the same lines day after day, as if for the first time they were performing it to that audience, because it's a new audience. They paid some money. They expecting something fresh and not a stale play. Something that we can hear. Oh, this person's just going through the motions, and we're just sitting here having to suffer through it. When personalities drop a long-standing element, the audience has to find new reasons to love them. And memorability comes from familiarity. And when popular features disappear, reasons to listen disappear as well. Okay, it's not always that drastic, I would say, as long as you come back strong, right? So you do have to drop a feature. Eventually, it does run its life span, I would say, right? So about 12 months. Um, Everyone in this industry is guilty for hanging on to a feature that does work for many, 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 many years, right? Because it works, right? And people are yet to become exhausted with it because, and here's the primary reason why, because this particular creator, like I said, this broadcaster, has found fresh and new ways to be able to present it in a way that people do not get bored for those years to come. So, okay, yes, sure, I'd say theoretically, or I'd say at a base level, 6 to 12 months for feature and to shut up. But otherwise, from that, there isn't, like I'm not going to say to you, I'd stop it just because of the sake of stopping it. So let's continue with the notion or the concept of surprising. Now, you know what's going to come up. So we want to be able to know that a listener wants to know that when they do listen to a show, they know what to expect in terms of like a style, the type of presenter, their temperament, once again, their approach to doing radio, their personality, and so those have to be consistent. But surprising your listener is essential for every single show that you do. Excuse me, right? Okay, so make sure that your show is fresh, right? It's fresh all the time, right? And whenever you want to understand or test yourself, do a litmus test as to what fresh is. You look at your content and say, have I covered this before? Has someone else covered this before? Have I read it like a couple of times somewhere else or across social media? Or has it been already the core of a conversation that has been had by many? And I'm just recycling and repeating that for my listeners. There's no surprise element in there. On the other hand, stagnation is one of the greatest challenges to successful shows. And those features that make you famous can prevent personalities from appealing to a new generation of fans, specifically if you feel like it's so great, but it's dated, right? A lot. Sorry, I have to drink this water, otherwise I'm not going to get through this, right? So a lot of presenters are, for some other reason, no, this is the reason, not some other. I know exactly what I'm saying. Right. So the feature that worked many years ago and it was dated. So in other words, it was dated around that time they were living in. It was dated around the culture, the pop culture, the trends, or whatever it may have been, and it worked really well. And kind of, I'm sorry, an oblivious presenter will continue that for longer than 5 to 10 years. That's insane, right? Without actually refreshing the angle to it. This is exactly what we're sitting with when we're talking about stagnation, right? Those features that make you famous can prevent personalities again to appealing to a new generation of fans. You can get new fans and you can keep your old ones if you just apply a little bit of strategic thinking to how it is that you want to approach your craft. Programmer Kevin Robinson used an example from behavioral psychology as food is dropped into a lab rat's little like little cage, or I like when they go through their little maze. It's cute, right? Okay, a lever in the cage. Yeah, well, let me say that it's dropped to a lab rat near a lever in the cage. There, they slowly learn to circulate where the food appeared to originate. When they do, the lever is tapped. Their behavior is then rewarded. Soon, rats begin to link the lever and the food together, and so there's it's Pavlov's dog theory, right? So Pavlov did the same thing with a dog, and every time he would we would feed his dog, he would ring a bell, just for obviously this more psychological thing, right? So that the dog would link the bell, the sound of the bell, to being fed. And whenever, well, at a later stage, not to punish the dog, like Pavlov would ring the bell and the dog would come immediately running to expect food, not kisses and hugs and all that type of stuff, but food, right? So we'll treat the listener in the same way. However, all right, were rewarded regularly on a high consistent basis, or highly consistent basis, they become very bored and stop responding. So when the consistency of reward is altered, leaving some taps on the level unfilled, the rats remain stimulated. In other words, like making sure that they want a little more. That does sound a little cruel, but okay, we are testing, a hypothetical human behavior through lab animals, right? And humans respond better to intermediate stimulation and reinforcement rather than sustained rewards for effort, right? The trick is knowing when original behavior has been learned, and so rewards can be distributed at unpredictable intervals. All right, what is brevity? Brevity is saying what you need to say with the amount that you have, the duration of time that you have. So, in other words, not having to continuously talk to make a point, right? We've only started together in our class sessions, and this is one of the obstacles that you'll have to tackle. We spoke about it, I think last week, right? Where I said, don't worry so much. Don't worry so much about trying, in varied ways in one link to keep saying things until you try to get them, or what it is that you're trying to say correct, because that is waffling and not brevity, right? Brevity also includes including too much unnecessary information in something that could have been said in 3 or 4 sentences, right? So we're not forcing you to say it in 3 or 4 sentences. If you've made your point, there's no need. It doesn't become more profound, right? Or more important, should you say it a million times over, right? Nobody complains that the church service, song, or movie is too long because If it's a good service, a good song, or a good movie, well, people have got exactly what they've gotten exactly what they wanted out of it. Brevity is key to maintaining interest, and so since listeners tune in for very short periods, well, self-contained bits are better than content over several segments. That is debatable because it also depends on your listener, but most of all, your program and your station manager's business decisions to do so. Right. Okay. They're constantly tuning in and out, and it's up to us to ensure that they know what's going on. Sports Talk host Jim Rome introduces his guest every 3 to 4 minutes in a style that never distracts listeners who have heard the full segment. So, kind of recapping, like recapping is the word. I want to say revamping it. It's not true. So we recap and we make sure that we touch base as to who's in studio. We give a handle, we drop that. Again, we say it in a new and different way and fresh, just to keep. It's just one of those norms. I don't really even want to be able to give a reason as to why it's good to do that, right? It sounds professional. It is the way things are done, and it's being done because it has a great effect, right? An impact on the way that listeners are kept engaged within a conversation, specifically here within a guest or an interview. So this is an opportunity to bring new listeners into the conversation. If they have just joined, well, you know what? Guess what? Here you are. Here it is. This is this person. This is what they're here for. This is what they do. And the timeline is whatever. Okay. Anyway, many sports announcers just use an hourglass to remind them to give the score for the audience just tuning in. Sure, an hourglass, I'm not so sure anymore, right? An hourglass, I'm hoping that you even know what that is, but if you don't, I wouldn't be surprised either, right? Because an hourglass is one of those, yeah, anyway, just it's an archaic instrument, effective, right? Obviously, but I don't think I've seen an hourglass since the last time I played like um what was it? It wasn't Trivial Pursuit. It doesn't matter. They're using game. Oh, dictionary, right? All right. Anyway, like you'll see a little hourglass attached to it so you understand the notion, right? Never assume that your audience has been listening for more than just a few minutes on. And so if listeners tune in and out and don't know what they're talking or what you're talking about, you're going to definitely lose them. So don't always, that does not mean to always repeat, rinse cycle, repeat, rinse cycle, repeat, rinse cycle, repeat. Please don't do that. That's irritating, right? But because, and here's the reason why you can segue in and out and in and out quite intermittently because of what it is that you are saying, the way that you do address your guests, the way that you do address your segment, you do where you do address the content, right, itself. A person can put two and two together if the two is clear and the other two is clear too, so that they can make four. Right. Okay. Right. Was our winter. Anyway, whatever. Right, find the entertainment value and get it quickly and clearly. So long setups won't cut it. Get to the point. We spoke about Larry King, and one of his key, I think, characteristics when it comes professionally is just getting to the point, right? It's not about being tactless, it's about being tactful and purposeful. Sports talk host Don Patrick sets up a topic and with a unique talent for word economy finds a compelling hook very quickly. And so this is why we teach you these things. We don't just say, just come up with a hook just because. Like it's used everywhere and it's been used for a really long time and it works, right? So as you build these different fundamentals that you have been learning throughout the process of our time together, mine and yours, right? And your other lecturers too. just know that the fundamentals have been drawn and put together within your academic text and within your academic guidance to know that, listen, this is what is happening every single day in the real world, right? So he doesn't allow small talk, right? Why small talk? Hi, how are you? Like, what's going on with your mama? Like, how's your dog doing? Like, how are your feet feeling? I heard there was swelling yesterday. Hi, man. Anyway, he ignores the how are you today? Kevin Robinson says it's about making a listener's eye contact. So speaking to your listeners, not speaking at them. The internet has turned everyone into content skimmers, as we know that. Scroll, 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 scroll. I was at my aunt's house on Saturday, and she's I think it's always important to include the age for context, right? I think she's about 75 or 76, right? And she's now consuming TikTok, right? And so my cousin was out making some tea for us, and I was in the other room. I go to hear my aunt scrolling, 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 because it took about the average, just like any other user, 3 to 7 seconds to decide this is a rubbish TikTok video, and she moved on. That's a content skimmer, just like all of us. Think of how man, I just didn't know. I just didn't know before, like as I woke up now. And I literally went on my phone, and what I do, I just scroll through Instagram, scroll, 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 for, I don't know, think about a duration of, let's say, 5 to 6 minutes, right? Like, they absorb material in bite-sized pieces. We get something of something from something, and we move on, right? Bullet points rule over long essays. So when you are preparing your show, make sure that in the beginning specifically, and also when you feel like you're getting a little lost or complex or messy or whatever it may be, draw back to bullet points. Ideally, stay with the bullet points because paragraphs are just far too much information to, in that moment while you're being present, try to comprehend, right? Even though you did prep it, right? And you missed out on the part where you had to highlight certain sections, right? With the highlighter, right? Okay, a highlighter, and these are the points or whatever it is I want to get across. You're going to get lost, right? Controversy and drama. Well, I mean, you know what? I'm not going to say don't do it, right? It does work. Just like everything else in radio that is done well, it also works. It's just a form of it as well, some form of or subsection or sub whatever element of what we do on air. And we know big hosts like Rush Limbaugh and Rick Dees, Jerry Springer, Howard Stern, everyone that we have spoken about before in terms of them being examples of really big global shock jocks, right? Controversial is sometimes needed, but it is dangerous if you adopt that as a trademark for yourself. Identity, here we go. So, when too many personalities compete for attention, important information is lost. So, this is an insecure bunch of personalities that are fighting for a mic and, oh, I'm not saying enough here, or my guest is saying too much here, or my co-host is outshining me, or, and back and forth, right? Like, this is absolute chaos, and also shows once again, like a novice immaturity approach to broadcasting. At the end of the day, you want to know that one, you have confidence in yourself, right? So speak when you have something to say. Remember, you are part of a team, so you do have an equal placement in that team. And so what you want is a show dynamic that is going to be successful for all of you, right? So that's a tendency in many American talk shows for highly compelling hosts to allow their producers to also speak on air because they are contributors too. So they're on air producers. Most of the time, they have little to contribute and have no identity with the audience. I say partially true too. Partially true. Not fully true, or to the extremity. It's nothing but clutter when there's nothing to add and you're doing it just for the sake of being able to do it. Roles must be distinct and offer diverse contribution. New characters should be introduced with a strategy to reinforce the role that they do play. So let's talk just briefly about listener focus. You can almost hear the audience pledge their love if you talk like they talk, not like a DJ. Avoid big words when smaller ones will do. Don't patronize them. Talk about things that they care about. Show enthusiasm for their interests. Respect their time. Respect their priorities. Deliver their promises on time. Tell stories so they feel smart, clever, or informed. Have a point of view about events in their life and about life in general, right? Now that you understand the challenge, let's define the mission. And we'll close up that. What's a mission and a vision statement? The mission is the short term approach to what the station wants to achieve over the next 3 to 5 years. Successful shows are a result of crafting a personality into a brand. So now we can have a mission statement for the actual show itself. What would we like to work slowly, work consistently, work hard, and obviously, like, what's the other word I'm looking for? Conscientiously, right? So let me just take some water. Yeah. Mm. Is it today? Dromont, askisne. Anyway, so most companies have a corporate mission statement that captures obviously the essence of the brand. We know this already, and that must be filtered down to the actual show. The show cannot define its own mission statement on its own without guidance from the programming or station manager, or understanding genuinely how much you need to buy into the station statement, the mission of the statement, and the vision of the statement, the entire look, feel, touch, smell, whatever it is of the station, without you being able to then next define your own. Start the list of ideas, objectives, strats, characteristics, goals, and principles. And each list should deal to open or lead to open discussion, reasoning, and debate within your team to fix this here. Not to fix, but to really, I suppose, fix it because, just an initial idea is normally quite a mess, right? But we really want to obviously like tenderize that particular experience, sorry, that output, right? So, what do you want the audience to say about the show 1 year from today? These are questions that you should want to ask, right? And it shouldn't be that something like, oh, I just want them to like it. No, like they've got to have very distinct and very specific, right? uh, answer to that question, right? So that you know you've made an impact. This will reveal characteristics, attributes, and attitudes and images that show, or the show will then develop. And it will help highlight what to promote, market, and measure. When passionate fans are asked, well, what should they do? They should be able to describe what the show is actually about, because that conscientious memory retention means your show has made an impact, right? Weak shows lack a clear perspective. Their roles are vague. They offer a little reason to actually even be on air. Like, do sorry, I have to take a moment. I'm not being dramatic, right? It really, because it's the same thing day in, day out, right? And we see it consistently. Like, why are you going to do a song of the day? It is, it's, it's silly. Okay, just to be nice about it. Well, who cares about your song of the day? No one cares. Like, it's just such a vapid, stupid feature, for example. And here's my thing. It's not I'm saying that there isn't any merit in it, because it shows so much lack of effort, so much lack of interest, so much lack of commitment to your audience. That's why it's a rubbish feature. Like if you just add a couple of angles to it, make it interesting, like base it on the most controversial quote of the day from social media, and put a song there. That's better, man. Do something with it. But you know what? It's as if someone has said to you that 40 years ago, because this worked 40 years ago, song of the day, blah, blah, blah. For 40 years ago, 4 decades ago, 4 decades ago. And I emphasize that it's so long ago. It does not work the same way anymore. And you're saying to me, Chris, you're stating the absolute, like a lowest form of obviousness, right? Because it should be so clear. Oh, like I know, I'm going all diva about this, right? But it's so silly, man. Ah, my word. Anyway, so so then when you do that and you see like in 7 years time you haven't been acknowledged or acclaimed or won an award or being promoted or whatever, don't sit and say, oh, but I came to work and I played a song for a day for 7 years. No, man, no. Weak. Okay, like I say, that's weak. Right. So, what emotions will what will show target listeners become fans because of passion? Don't stop at what we want them to fall in love with the show. Don't stop that. Right. Okay. Yeah. Press forward to identify exactly how you will attract them and why they will fall in love. Why? And what makes you irreplaceable. We know that that's just in its absolute form, not impossible. I mean, you can replace everything is replaceable, right? But you want to be able to go to the largest extent of what that notion is. I don't want to. I don't want to live without the show. No, I don't. I don't. I can't live without. But I don't want to. I don't need to. Right. So how does each personality relate and fill in the blank from a listener's perspective? The show is for me because, and then you say there, right? So some more continuing closing questions. What about the show is important to creating bonds with the audience? What will the audience remember about the show? What will you become known for? What will you make famous? This is what separates you from the competition on a continuous level. Don't make that the prime example of why you're doing your job well. Who is the show for? The Fitness Center Curves, for example, was marketed for being an exclusive fitness center for women. Critics did laugh at the strat of ignoring at least 50% of the potential audience, which was men, right? But their clear focus has allowed them to expand to 70 countries. I'm not quite sure where Curves is right now. We did have a number of branches here in South Africa. I just, I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't, I don't have commentary on that, right? Just in terms of why, I mean, those disappeared quite fast, right? So, what is the line of good taste that will never be crossed? Every show has limits and imaginary boundary that should never be violated. So, you should ask yourself, what is yours? After collecting and organizing data, scheduled several hours with a group of key personnel, should I say, to prioritize the list. Let me say that again so it makes some sense. After collecting this particular data, you should schedule several hours with a group of all the people that are stakeholders. They contribute to the entire process of being able to build a great element or a great brand or great show, great product, right? At the end of the day, right? So combine now the objectives in a definitive statement that acts as the source for evaluating all elements. Mission statements may be one or two lines or several paragraphs, and length is less important than content, right? Okay, a successful statement is always specific. Closing it up, failed mission statements, according to Tracy, failed for many reasons. The personalities were great, but and the strat was sound, but his mistake, like there's a guy here, obviously, yeah, let me just say this, yeah. Tracy Johnson himself once had an idea to shake up the market by creating an all-female show. It doesn't seem like a novel idea now because we've had all-female stations, but at that time it was considered quote unquote revolutionary because males dominated the industry in general, right? Okay. All right, his mistake was not establishing a set of expectations or clear roles, right? So then they relied on the gimmicks of an all-female show like gossip and lady talk and sisterhood and I'm not trying to be funny about this. I'm saying these are things, right? And I do apologize for being patronizing. But those things that a man, here's my thing, a man is trying to also develop an all female show. What does he know? Nothing. As his frustration with the show increased, the presenter became distant and performance deteriorated. Johnson tried to create or change their on-air approach, but they thought he was against them. No surprise there. Okay, so the problem was that he didn't describe criteria to objectively measure progress or evaluate performance with these ladies, right? Their mission statement was useless. The show will be by women for women, consistent with the demographic goals of the station. It'll be fun, interactive, and entertaining. Well done. Isn't everything in like entertainment supposed to be that, right? They will play more music than our mostly talked about competitors. Who are your competitors, right? Because I'm not saying that an all-female radio show or station is a bad idea, but strategically, you need to say, this is a niche product. Does it belong on a station itself? I'm saying in the public sector. Does it belong online? Podcasting, broadcasting. Is there so this only part of the brand? Is the brand larger? So in other words, has very influential women that are part of it that have their own, I'm saying businesses, their own reach, their own whatever it is. What are they trying to achieve? Because this is more a social statement, right? And a social project than it is something that's sustainable within the same comparison. So we're doing the same. It's chalk and cheese, as I always say. Two different things, man. I'm trying to compare this to now, let's say, traditional radio, mixed jocks, mixed races, whatever it may be, right? Anyway, so where was I? Okay. I'm so sorry for the yawn. They will play more music than our mostly talked competitors, and this statement did not establish what the show was about. Normal growing pains became major problems. Again, I'm not laughing. It's what we all, I'm laughing. It's all, we all do that, but learn quickly. So this was not a talent failure, but an expectation. No, a manager failure. Right, a great mission statement alone would have not or would have turned the show into a winner, but it would have given them much better chance, a much better chance, shall I say, to develop and actually create something really cool. We'll never know, will we? Right, with a mission statement in place, show ingredients are easier to create, and the show can develop quite possibly characters that make some sense. There is your homework. Use the knowledge about building and a winning show and listen to three different radio stations of your choice. According to the principles learned, were the shows badly executed or well executed? And that is all I have for you for this lesson. For this lesson. Woo! Chris. Right. Anyway, I do hope you have a great break. I'm saying both. Well, you're gonna hear this later, so it will make sense. But I do hope you had a great break of the weekend, the long weekend, and that you do have a great workers' day ahead.